played another game of Shadow of the Bat recently. Specifically, Episode 2, The Cat and the Claw. Now, you only get 4 rounds to pull this one off. If any of your people get KO'd, you lose. If you don't put a KO token on Catwoman, you lose. But anyway, we started with the recommended characters and cards. And here's how it went. Firstly, I felt like rolling Batman's dice last, since he can pick one of his results. I think that's the legal way to do it, so I'm going with it. I gave him lots of punches so he could use his elevated takedown. Robin doubled up his punches so he could share with Batman. And he's got lots of movement so he can end up down there in that mess. Hence all the melee attacks. I expect Batgirl is going to end up down there too, but Gordon is going to stay up on the roof and shoot at people. At least that's the plan thus far. And this table gets a little crowded. Now Catwoman's ability puts her on top of the deck, so she kicks things off. Or at least she would. Now I can't find it in the book, but I'm told that she is actually unaware. At least at the moment, because she doesn't share line of sight with any of her other goons. So still looking it up, but we're going with that. So next up is Gordon. He runs up to the ledge and starts blasting. But unfortunately, the hired gun that he targeted dodged his attacks, and he lost some focus in the process. He is not on his game today. But then he gives actions to his beat cops who join him at his side. They get 1 wound on the hired gun, but that's better than nothing. But up next is the hired gun, freshly angered by bullets. These guys are real pains in the bat. Their preferred targets are characters with higher life points, which means Batman at first. But their preferred target is sadly out of range, which is bad news for Jim Gordon. His defense is 2, but he has a defense icon, so he rolls 3 to defend. But he doesn't have much focus, and he has to defend against 4 different hired guns. Some of them hit him, some don't, but all of them give him under fire tokens. So he's got troubles. Another fun detail is the Enforcer, because they all activate and get 1 action whenever another henchman gets a turn. Enforcers prefer targets with lower health, which again is now bad news for Jim, because those hired guns don't mess around. Fortunately, they don't get to do any attacking this turn since they're so far away, but they do move closer to the good guys, which could spell trouble on the horizon. What a mess this is turning out to be. Next up is Batgirl. She uses some barbararangs on the Enforcer and then closes in to do some punching. She has to spend some focus to get those 2 hits on him, but it grows back at the end for her, so it's focus well spent. Next up, the Enforcer. Again, kind of wonderful. They take out both beat cops, put a scratch on Batgirl, and close in on Gordon. Next is the Boy Wonder. He flies in like a robin, takes out an Enforcer, and it only costs him a little bit of focus. But hey, one last bad guy. And the last character to activate in round 1 is the Batman. I guess he likes to make a last-minute dramatic entrance. He does an elevated takedown on an Enforcer, knocking him out in 1 blow, like he does. Thanks to the falling damage that he would have taken had he not been using this card. Oh, how I love it. Then he slings some batarangs at a hired gun, which wounds him, but unfortunately he was out of movement points, so he can't get in there and do any melee damage. What a bummer. And that's round 1. 3 to go. Once again, Catwoman would kick off the round, but she shares no line of sight with any of the other bad guys. But we need to focus, wrap things up, get over there quickly. I loaded up Batman and Batgirl with melee attacks. Their job is to clear the field a bit. Gordon's getting movement and defense since he has to get away from this nightmare, and hopefully do some damage on his way out. And look, Batman is first this time. Well, second anyway, so let's go hit something. First, I use his Batarang to finish off a hired gun. Lucky. But it's a good start, and it means 1 less token on Gordon. It'll take 5 hits to take down an undamaged hired gun, since they have 2 defense and 3 life. I spend 3 melee icons, and pow! Bye-bye to that hired gun. And bye-bye to a Gordon token. Only 2 more to go. Then I use 2 punching tokens, making 5 dice to attack another hired gun. I had to spend a focus token, but I ended up with 6 damage. There it is. There's some Batman overkill. 1 less token and 1 less bad guy. Unfortunately, he's out of tokens, so he can't rescue the bystander yet. But we'll kick off his next turn with it, if we're lucky. Now for the Enforcers. There's 2 left, and they have Gordon surrounded. Plus, his health isn't looking too good. Fortunately, he has 4 defense icons, in addition to his natural 2. Makes 6. So he's able to dodge all 4 of their attacks combined. Though focus tokens were lost in the process. Now the hired guns. Well done. But again, he also activates the Enforcers, because of course he does. What an asshole. The Underfire tokens won't give Gordon any damage until the end of his next turn, so he's just kind of taking damage at this point. But his defense is OP, so he avoids both hired gun attacks and enforcer attacks. There's some Gordon for you. Now Robin enters the fray and throws some punches at the enforcer next to him. 3 of them land, only 2 more to knock this guy out. But he wants to leave. He spends his move icons for 8. There it is. Movement points. He spends 1 to break away from the enforcer, and he spends the rest to fall down the skylight and put enough distance between him and Catwoman's cat so it doesn't jump right on his face. They like to do that. He would have taken falling damage, but he was able to reduce it via his defense. Lucky. Next is Gordon. First he takes a shot at the hired gun that gave him the token, but the dice aren't having it. Next he takes a swing at the enforcer next to him, and the dice aren't having that either. So now it's time to run for it. He has enough movement points to break away and break the line of sight on the hired guns that ditches all of his tokens. I hated those things. Now he can start working his way to the cat room. Lastly is Batgirl, who's ready to do some punching. First, she takes down the enforcer next to her, though she did have to use her ability to do multiple re-rolls to make that happen. But that's why it's cool! Then she takes down the final hired gun. Hate those guys. But unfortunately, she's out of icons now, so she cannot be rescuing the bystanders nearby. Much like Batman. Waiting till next turn. Cheers. So for this round, I loaded up the crew with as much movement as possible. And the Catwoman has been very patient, so she gets to kick off round 3, since she has line of sight to someone. First, she closes the distance to Robin. She gets into proper range, but if she weren't able to do that, her attack would change to a ranged attack with a value of 2. That would be switching to her whip, I assume. But in this case, it's up close and personal. She really doesn't like that little bird. She also gets a +1 to her melee attack, which I assume is her claws. Bad kitty. The low-level guys get to make 2 actions per turn, but she's the leader, so she gets 3. She used 1 to close the distance, but the other 2 she uses to make a 3-hit attack. He ends up taking 3 hits of damage and had to lose some focus points, so that hurts a bit. Now her kitty, Isis, closes in on Robin, but can't quite get there. But if she lands on him, he gets a penalty. We're talking attack -1 and defend -1. Anyway, the next card is the Enforcer. Yes, there is still 1 left. He's fine with using his attacks on Gordon, and Gordon defends 4 hits of damage down to 1. Good trade-off. But now he's out of focus tokens, however, alive. Next up is Robin. First, he uses a melee attack on Catwoman. But the thing about her is she gets to roll a die before the attack to see if she evades the whole thing. That's just crazy business, but also very Catwoman. In this case, fortunately, she does not evade. So next he uses a move action to break away from her and move out for a ranged attack. Also to put more distance between him and the bad kitty. He rolls a lot of dice, but only lands 2 hits. And they can't beat her natural 3 defense, so back to the training simulator for Robin. What do they call him? Boy Blunder? Now the hired gun activates. And there are none left, but remember that the Enforcer gets to take 1 action when that card comes up. Oh, being in the Bat family is not easy. Anyway, he manages to get 1 damage in on Jim. It's a rough day for us all, mate. And speaking of Jim, it's his turn to move. First he misses with a melee attack, and then uses point blank to do a ranged attack, landing 1, count them, 1 little hit. Better than nothing, I guess. Then he breaks away, working his way toward the skylight. Now for Batgirl, and she has some rescuing to do. Now I'm under the impression that you can't use multiple icons in 1 swing to rescue multiple people in this case. So whether you have 2, 3, or whatever versus 1, it still kind of counts as 1 action. But she does what she does and she saves who she saves. That's what good guys do. In this case, she's a girl, hence her name. So I'll use punching to rescue this bystander. There you go. And then this to move her here so that she can rescue that one by spending this. And now she is rescued as well. And now we can use her Barbarang to attack that dude. Now onto the Enforcer. Now he's on elevated terrain, so he's considered 3 spaces away instead of 1. Because elevated terrain is an extra 2. Now she would have dealt 2 damage, but that penalty kind of drains it all away, so he just kind of laughs at her. It happens. Now to the Batman, making one of his late entrances. And he gets right to work, spending an icon to rescue a bystander.
First, we're spending an icon for the special action of rescuing a bystander, and that's all of them.
Now next we're gonna deal with the grappling gun, and you tell me if I get this wrong, gamers. It says to ignore any figures or non-blocking terrain, and don't end your move in a space with another token. Well, duh. So my next move is gonna be 3 times 3. Yes, 9 spaces of wherever I wanna go. That's what that means, right?
So tell me if I'm doing this right, Bat Gamers. If I activate 1, 2, 3 movement icons, his 3 turns into a 9. And I can ignore all kinds of terrain and stuff and move however I want. And this is how I want to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Fall down to here. 8. I'm here now. And then 9. No, let's do that. 9. And as a bonus, if I pass through a friendly figure, I can place them adjacent to me. So, did I do that right?
It's what the card says, it just feels so overpowered. But then so are the bad guys. Oh, and we're gonna leave Gordon behind to deal with the remaining Enforcer. Even though we don't have to deal with him at all because he's not a victory condition. But now that we're here, Batman instigates a ranged attack on Catwoman. Get a room, you two! And yet again, she fails to evade it. Lucky! But she only gets 1 point of damage, and I had to lose some focus just to make that happen. All of that for 1 drop of blood. Anyway, since we've rescued the bystanders, all that's left to do is KO Catwoman for victory! Wish me luck. So I loaded the crew with ranged and melee attacks, and we divvied up some movement in there as well. Because breaking away means you can get back and use ranged. We're still waiting on Jim to show up, but first of all, let's get to Catwoman. Since Catwoman's cat activates when she does, we assume that's before or after she takes a turn, so it would be in Catwoman's best interest for the kitty cat to give the disadvantage to the person she's going to attack. I don't like having to think this way, but it's common sense. Isis Kitty Cat goes for the person with the most cards, which at the moment is tied between Batman and Robin. But thinking like a bad guy, we're gonna go ahead and put the cat on the one that she plans to attack. Not much of a victory if you don't respect your bad guy. Now Catwoman closes in and she's got a +1 melee. That makes it 3. And Batman has a -1 because of Bad Kitty. I mean, when it's his turn. She gets a hit in on Batman, but she's really just running out the clock at this point. Somehow our heroes have to land 13 points of damage in on her. That's gonna be difficult. Well, first up is Batgirl. The plan is, use up your melee, and then break away and use your ranged, and hope she doesn't evade them. She has a 1 in 3 chance of success. That's enough to ruin your day. Batgirl initiates a melee attack, which Catwoman is unable to evade. Good job. But it only causes 2 hits of damage. We're getting there. Then she breaks away and instigates a ranged attack. Will Catwoman evade it this time? No, she will not. And it adds 2 more damage, bringing it up to 5. Now for Gordon. Remember him? He runs to the skylight, taking his falling damage, which would have been 2, but he reduced it down to 1, so I guess not so bad. Then he initiates a ranged attack using point blank. Does she evade this one? Oddly, no, she does not. I'm not used to my luck going this way. He deals 3 damage, bringing her total up to 8. Maybe we can pull this off after all. Now Robin is up and he doesn't need breakaway. He initiates a pretty sizable ranged attack, but does she evade it? Again, no. This is actually getting weird. Well, his attack adds 3 more damage to her, bringing the total up to 11. Only 2 more to go. Next is the hired gun, followed by Enforcer. But as there are no more hired guns and no line of sight for the Enforcer, he'll do nothing instead of 3 things. Yeah, the heroes all kind of ditched him. He just looks so lonely out there. So now for the big boss battle. And the big question is, can Batman do 2 points of damage to the Catwoman before his turn ends? I certainly hope so. First, he initiates a melee attack, and does she evade it? Yes. Actually, this time she does. If he could land the ranged attack, he would be good, but I do not believe he has the movement points to break away from both Catwoman and Isis the cat. But I still have a grappling gun. Remember that? So he moves out of the way and initiates a ranged attack. But is she able to evade this one? Actually, yes. She saved her bag of tricks for the final act, as it turns out. And this is how we lost the game. But I have to wonder, what would have been the result if it had not been evaded? Oh yeah, that would have totally gotten past her defenses and ended the game in a favorable fashion. But that's not what happened. Well, there you have it, folks. It all came down to a 1 in 3 chance of evasion. But fish stories are often based on such things. Anyway, we're used to Batman villains getting away, so see you next time. Thanks for listening. Yeah.